Since we understood about the donors choose problem, the background of the problem, now let's go into the data set, right? So we will give you a zipped folder. We'll give you a compressed folder. It's a slightly large folder. Please take some time to download it, which contains all of the data, all of the other miscellaneous files you would need to process this data across multiple assignments you have. You'll also obtain multiple IPython notebooks. When you unzip this zipped folder, when you uncompress this compressed folder, you will get multiple IPython notebooks, one for each assignment going forward, right? So these IPython notebooks will help you get started with the assignments much more easily, right? That's why we wanted to have them here so that instead of you struggling with some of the basics of IPython, you can get started with your assignments much more efficiently, right? So this zip folder is available in the description section of this video. If you just click on it, it might take some time to download based on your internet speed. But this zip folder, when you unzip, you'll start getting data. You'll start seeing data like this. You'll have a file called train.csv, right? This train.csv here contains these following columns or features, right? So I'll explain what all data we have for each project, right? Obviously, we have a project ID, which looks like this, which is a unique identifier for each project. We have a project title, which is a short description or a title for the whole project. For example, here is a sample project title. For example, art will make you happy, first grade fun, right? This is the title about the project. By just looking at the project title, I can understand that this is an art project. This is for first grade or first standard students, right? And it's going to involve a lot of fun activities because students will be happy and it'll be fun activities, right? So by just looking at the project title, look at the project title. It's actually a piece of text. It's actually English text, right? So by just using this project title, you can get a good idea of what the project is all about, right? So that's a second feature or second column of data that we have. The third column of data that we have is the grade or which class or which standard is this project for. The grade is an American word, so they say pre KG or second grade, third grade, fourth grade, up to 12th grade. In other parts of the world, especially the British influenced parts like India, we call LKG, UKG, first standard, second standard, third standard, fourth standard, so on and so forth, up to 12th class, right? So grade here basically means the grade or the it doesn't mean A grade, B grade, etc. It means the standard or the class in which the students are. So here it says this. There are basically four categories here, right? Students with this project could be from pre-KG to second grade, or third to fifth grade, sixth to eighth grade, or ninth to 12th grade, right? These are the grades or classes. They roughly represent the age group of the students who would participate in this project, right? So the next one that we have here is basically project subcategories, right? Sorry, project subject categories. I'm sorry, subject categories. What is this? So we have a bunch of project subjects, and a project can belong to one or more of these subjects. For example, a project can belong to music and arts, right? Makes sense. Or a project can belong to literacy and language and math and science. So given a project subject could be either one of them or it could be any subset of these projects. So it can be one, or if you have multiple subject categories for a given project, they will be comma separated, as you see here, right? So this field or this feature or this column can contain one or more values from this set. Okay. The next one is the school state, right? So school state basically says in which state is this school located. But because you look at this, you have a teacher, right, who is proposing a project, who is giving a project proposal, right? So the teacher for her or his students, right? So this is the teacher belongs to some school, and this school belongs to some state, right? So these states are typically represented with two-letter words. For example, NY is New York, right? CA is California. I think WY is Wyoming, if I'm not wrong. So all states, the state within the country, the state that the school belongs to is represented with a 2-letter postal code in the US, which are unique for each of the states, right? So that is good. So we know in which state the school belongs to. Then the next thing is the project subject subcategories. So we have seen the subject categories here. Now you can get a list or a comma separated list of subject subcategories. For example, it could have literacy, literature and writing, social sciences. So these subject subcategories, right, can be I mean, you could have multiple subcategories given a project, and these subcategories are separated using a comma, right? So this is another field that we have. The next one that we have here is project resource summary. Okay, let me just scroll it a little more. Okay, subject categories and subcategories we have seen. So now let's look at project resource summary. So this is like a short summary of what the project is all about. And this is again free form text. So this is an explanation of the resources. So this is resource summary. This is not project summary. What all resources are you asking for this project? This is an explanation of resources needed for the project. For example, my students need hands-on literacy material to manage sensory needs, right? This is a summary of the resources that are needed. Then there are 4 essays that the teacher writes about the problem that they want to solve, or about the project that they want a donation for, right? So these are essays. Literally, these are essays. We'll go and understand what each of these essays is little later, right? But these are like literally like long form text, like multiple paragraph text. There are 4 essays: essay 1, essay 2, essay 3, and essay 4. We'll understand what these essays are little later, right? I'll explain them in detail. Now the next feature or the next column of data that we have is basically the date and timestamp, the timestamp when this project was submitted. For example, you can see that this project was submitted in the 4th month in 2016 on the 28th day at so and so time. All right. The next one is a teacher ID. Each teacher has a unique ID, right? The teacher who is proposing this project has a unique ID, right? This is some information about the teacher. Similarly, you have teacher prefix. Is a teacher a doctorate, or is it Mr., Mrs., Miss, just teacher, or none? NAN basically means, none of them basically, or a missing value, right? That's what the teacher prefix means. The next very important feature here, or the important field, right, or important column here is teacher number of previously posted projects. So this is basically the number of applications previously submitted by the same teacher, because for each project we have a unique teacher ID, right? So I can easily see if this teacher has posted other projects in the past. So this is basically a number. This gives us whether this teacher has been previously active on Donors Choose or not, right? So that's one. Let's go through. We'll go through the essay data in a while, right? But before we go through the essay data, there is one more file in the zipped folder called resources.csv. Till now, in the train.csv, all the features that we have seen above basically tell us about the project, tell us about the teacher, and tell us about the students for whom this project is being proposed. The resources.csv tells us what resources are needed for this project, right? Either it could be physical resources or time or whatever it is, right? So so the resources.csv has these 4 fields. The first field is the project ID, right? This project ID will match the project IDs that we have in train.csv. Then the description of the resource. For example, here the description says, I need tenor saxophone reeds, a box of 25. This is what I need. And what is the quantity that you need? You need 3 of these. You need 3 of these boxes, right? And what is the total price of this? It is $9.95. So given a project, look at this, given a project could need multiple resources, resource 1, resource 2, resource 3, resource 4, so on and so forth. So what you'll notice in the resources.csv here, what you'll notice in the resources.csv here is, for a given project, you might see multiple resources being needed. That happens a lot. You will see multiple resources being needed. So you will have, so in this table, in this resources.csv, right, the first one is the project ID, right? You'll see the same project ID being repeated multiple times, the same project ID being repeated multiple times. Because if a project requires multiple resources like this, you'll see that it is repeating the same project ID, right? That's important. Again, we can combine the data that is there in the train.csv where we have project information and resources.csv. We'll see all of that little later when we actually go to data analysis, and when we see when we actually combine this data, join this data, and perform some exploratory data analysis, right? But that's another data set that we have. Obviously, we also have a field called project is approved, which tells us whether this project, it's a binary flag, it's a 0 or 1. 0 basically indicates that the project was not approved. 1 basically indicates that the project was approved. Right? This is what we need to predict eventually using all the data that we have. Right? Now let's go back to the essay data, because here, if you notice, I told you that there are 4 essays, but I said I'll get back to these essays in a little while. So now if I go into the essays data, right, the essays data basically consists of 4 essays. So prior to May 17th, 2016, every project required 4 essays to be written. The first essay needs to be about introduce us to your classroom. That is a prompt that is given. That is a subject that is given, and the teacher has to write an essay about the classroom. Essay 2, this is before or prior to May 17, 2016. The second essay is about tell us about your students. This is the topic. Essay 3 is describe how your students will use the materials that you're requesting. The fourth essay is choose by sharing why your project will make a difference. These are the 4 projects that were there prior to May 17, 2016. But from May 17, 2016, they said, let's not have 4 projects, let's have only 2 projects. So your data set that is given to you contains data. So look at this train.csv, right? So let's assume this is your essay 1, this is your essay 2, essay 3, essay 4, right? And other features. So for some rows in your data set, you will see all the 4 essays being present, because these essays came from prior to May 17, 2016. But there will be some rows in your data set after. These are projects, proposals submitted after or on May 17, 2016, where you'll only see 2 essays. The other 2 essays will be NaN, which basically represents not a number or empty cells. Okay. So you'll have this mix of data. We'll see how to work with this mixture of data. So starting from May 17, 2016, your essay 1 has to answer this question. Describe your students, what makes your students special, specific details about the backgrounds, your neighborhood, and your school are all helpful. The essay 2 is about the project. How will these materials make a difference in your students' learning and improve their school lives? Okay. So instead of having 4 essays, donors choose modified and said, let us just have 2 essays. The first one is about the students. The second one is about the project. So that life is simple. So in our data set, everything that all the essays that were there prior to May 17, 2016 will have all these 4 columns with some text. But on or after May 17, 2016, only 2 columns, essay 1, essay 2 will be available. Essay 3 and essay 4 will have NaN values as stated here, right? So now that will come to some challenge, right? Because we have some data where you have 4 columns, some data where you have 2 columns. We'll see how to deal with it as we go through this data set and as we solve these assignments together. Okay, sounds good.